Matt, we're reading about Ward and Jones, and you got to tell us about Latu. Where do things sit there for the Colts in terms of the injury front?
Yeah, well, you're going to be without Charvarius Ward and Jalen Jones for Sunday's game. So next man up, certainly in the secondary, and kind of thin at that position in terms of just overall experience. Once you get behind Jones and Ward, Mekhi Blackman is a guy they traded for. They gave up a sixth-round pick to the Minnesota Vikings right at the end of the preseason to bring him in. So you would think he's probably in line to start, or at the very least see a lot of time within that secondary. They have another undrafted rookie free agent on the active roster at cornerback, a young man by the name of Jonathan Edwards, who has a little bit of a local flair here in Indiana. Played a couple of years at Indiana State, and then hit the transfer portal and finished up at Tulane. But he's a rookie. He's never started. Blackman's only started 3 games in his career, none since 2023. So kind of a big component in this game for the Colts in the secondary. That's a big part of how they want to operate, how they want to play under Lou Anarumo. They want to be game-specific. They want to disguise as much as they can. I think it's probably fair to say that you can do that maybe a little bit easier with Charvarius Ward and his resume versus a guy that, again, is potentially making his first start in a couple years in Mekhi Blackman. But that's what they're going to try to do. They had a lot of success in doing that last week against Tua Tagovailoa. And then, Bo Nix is a guy that's still in his second year, fresh into his second year. That's what they're going to try and do. That's the aim. But obviously way easier said than done when you're without one of your premier playmakers at the cornerback spot.
All right, let's cut straight to the chase here. Are the Colts actually a good football team, or are the Dolphins just that bad?
Yeah, as of right now, I think you got to say the Colts are much better than some anticipated. And, I'm around it every day, right? I cover the team, and I see it, up close and in person. Sunday was just a refreshing action for the Colts because it was just a manifestation of the potential that we thought this team could be all off season, right? You got the core of the team coming back. And listen, this is a playoff team, or a team, I should say, that's missed the playoffs 4 years in a row. And within those 4 years, they've won at least 8 games in 3 of them. So they're kind of right there in purgatory, waiting to bang the door down, if you will. And again, not taking anything away from last year's team, but had they had a little bit of a better defense and they had a little bit more consistency at quarterback, that was probably a playoff team. Well, what did we see on Sunday? We saw really consistent quarterback play. I would say, way above average from Daniel Jones. And then we saw just a completely revamped defensive scheme under Lou Anarumo coming over from the Cincinnati Bengals. So it was really fun to watch them dominate. The Colts last year didn't dominate very often. They played 13 games that were decided by 1 score. So to see them go out there and win by 25 points and have the feel of the game feel even worse than that was really refreshing. And it was just good to see them get off to a good start, which has been a problem for this franchise for over a decade now.
Matt Taylor's the radio voice of the Colts. Hey, Matt, we can be honest. Jonathan Taylor, dude, you can't throw the ball away before you go in the end zone. We get it. You probably beat the Broncos if he doesn't do that, right? We all agree on that, correct?
Well, going back to that game last year, I do agree with you in that sense. The Colts are up 13-7, about 12 minutes to go in the second quarter, and Taylor rips off whatever it was, a 35, 40-yard run to the end zone, lets loose of the ball, and the game from a Colts perspective just got completely sideways after that. From a box score standpoint, you look at what Denver did or didn't do. Bo had 3 interceptions. They had barely over 200 yards of offense,
right,
and they won a game by 18 points. That's hard to do.
Right.
So, you can't take anything away from the Broncos game. Had a lot of, playoff implications about it. That game essentially sunk the Colts' hopes to make the postseason. But, I think if you objectively ask anybody that was at that game, it was probably more, you classify it more as a Colts loss more than a Denver win, right? They still made plays to win the game. You know what I mean? But you had the Marvin Mims, 2 big punt returns. So I think, the core of the Colts that have been around for a while that were certainly part of that game. They remember that game. I don't think they stew on it too much going into this game Sunday, but I think it's still kind of fresh because it was at the end of last year, and they knew how much, that game meant to their playoff hopes. And to not get it, guys were a little bit pissed off and, a little bit surly after that. So it's going to be a big game. I mean, it really is. It's even though it's a week 2 game, these are two teams that have playoff aspirations. These are two teams that, could very realistically be in the thick of it in terms of a wild card position. So, even though it's an early game, once we get into week 15, 16, 17, we start mapping out playoff scenarios. The winner of this game could be in a much better position because of the head-to-head tiebreaker.
Matt, it's the last couple of years in the NFL has sort of been redemption season for young quarterbacks that were given up on by previous teams, go somewhere else, rebound, and all of a sudden they're franchise guys again. Is that the direction you think Daniel Jones is going to head in?
Yeah, I mean, that's what the Colts, when they announced back in March that they were going to have this quarterback competition, bring somebody in to push Anthony Richardson, and, to give them, again, more consistency at the quarterback position. They didn't care who it was. They didn't care if it was Anthony Richardson coming close to reaching his potential as a top 5 pick and proving that he could stay on the field and stay healthy. And they didn't care if it was Daniel Jones becoming this year's version of Geno Smith or Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield, right? Career resurgence with a different team in a different setting in a different city. So, Daniel Jones won the job. And, again, it's one game, but so far so good. The Colts were completely validated through 60 minutes so far of the season to make that decision to go with Daniel Jones because as of right now, between the two at their respective stages of their career, Jones is just further ahead of pre-snap recognition, interpreting a defense, getting the ball out on time, and just higher completion percentage, working the ball in the middle of the field, staying on schedule with higher completion percentage throws. But I was also impressed last week with his ability to push the ball outside the numbers and vertically down the field, which every offense is trying to do to kind of widen out the defense, and that's going to help the running game with Jonathan Taylor. So it was a really encouraging sign for Daniel Jones last week. I mean, it's not hyperbole that his Colts debut was one of the best games of his career, which now spans 70 starts. And so if they can get close to that performance from Daniel Jones the rest of the season, the Colts could be in a good spot to at least contend for a playoff position.
Yeah, we were reminded watching Daniel Jones kind of run around of Bo Nix, frankly, Matt, because that's what Bo Nix looks like. It's not like we're not calling runs for him, but he's not afraid to run, and it's going to help you. It's going to bail you out every now and then, and he has the athletic ability to do so. I think Jones and Bo Nix actually have that in common, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right to bring that up, and I think that's at least part of the reason why the Colts brought in Daniel Jones when they made that choice in free agency, to have him come in and compete with Anthony Richardson, because, aesthetically, they don't have to change the offense too much because they share a similar skill set. Now, is Daniel Jones as athletic as Anthony Richardson? No. I mean, no one is. I mean, right? I mean, he's literally, based on combine measurements and things like that, he is the most athletic quarterback in the history of the NFL. But Daniel Jones is not like the quarterbacks in the last couple of years for the Colts when they've had to shift and pivot game plans and go to Gardner Minshew and Joe Flacco and Matt Ryan and Nick Foles, right? He's got some athleticism about him. So, and I think that's important for the rest of the skill players around the quarterback to not have to completely, change and revamp, the style in which they're going to try and move the ball down the field. And don't forget, Daniel Jones for his career is averaging over 5.5 yards per carry, and he's got the 6th most rushing yards among quarterbacks since he broke into the league in 2019. So, are they going to call like 5 or 6 design runs for Jones? I don't know, probably not. But he can get out of the pocket and he can keep you on schedule by making a play with his feet when things kind of break down.